Okay, I'd like to call, this is a meeting of the Ogdensburg Bridge and Port Authority Finance Committee meeting. I'd like to call to order. Today's date is Thursday, May 9th, 2024. This is a 4:31. I can't see. 4:31 start time. But we'll start with business items. So first item of business is the March unaudited internal 2024 financials. So I will turn that right over to you. Okay.
Just to let you all know, the auditor's work is here, which is why we have no cash flow. Been working with them, but instead of taking 4.5 days, they were in and out in 2.
Good.
So a lot of the time that I spent on vacation, I was directing pieces of paper to go to the auditor so that we didn't hold them up because they were due right after I got back. So if we go to the statement of financial position, you will see that our regular accounts receivable is at 213,000. I put down that we're 96% of our open AR is either current or 1 to 30 days. It's likely closer to 98%. There's nothing that's outstanding because we had one vendor who owed us a good $160,000 finally paid it. So that just washed out all of our old accounts receivable. We have 883,000 in AEAS accounts receivable. One of those is the payment from USDOT, which was submitted on the 16th of April, which we have not yet received back. And we need that back in order to pay the airline.
Is that unusual that it's been that late?
No, it's getting later and later. It used to be no more than about 14 days. March was 16 days, now we're almost a full month. I don't know what's holding up DOT because it's not the state, as though the state were waiting for the budget to be approved.
Right.
So I'm not really sure why this one's late. It will cause a very quick turnaround in getting the April payment back out to the airline.
Okay.
Do we have to pay any kind of a fee if it's late to the airline?
No,
Okay.
no, that could be a back and forth thing. They're late to us, we're late to them. So we just don't bother.
Okay.
Our fixed assets came in for the end of the year with net fixed assets about $86,000. That means our accumulated depreciation is about half of what all our assets are worth, which means if you were actually putting that money away, you should have about $8 million put away to buy all new things. Our construction in progress is at 8.2 million. We have not yet, unfortunately, received the New York State portion of the MALZEF program, so that is still open. That's all we're waiting for.
It's funny because on the next page, I had a question about that.
Yes, that's why.
Why it was still open.
Everything is done. We just do not have the final New York State payment.
Is that because of the budget?
I believe that's why it was held up.
Okay.
So we should see that shortly.
Other than that, we're good to go.
We're good to go, and then that will drop off and bring our construction in progress down to just over 6 million.
Okay.
And the biggest things, as you can see on page 2, is the revitalization and the dock wall expansion and the drainage project out at the airport. Our accounts payable regular are at 688. Our AEAS contour is at 386, and that's 1 month. Our New York State retirement is still at the balance we see, and all project accounts payable is at 1.2, and of that, approximately $575,000 has been paid since then. And we have just been notified that we received the line of credit from the bank so that we can start paying all the revitalization in quite a timely fashion. That's set up, and the limit is $2.5 million. So we should be able to get rid of all that ancillary project accounts payable. Of course, every March, we move long-term debt to current portion of long-term debt, which is why that current portion of long-term debt looks so large from last month. We moved it up. So we're only taking it off the current portion. And on the next page, you can see what our top 10 vendors are for payables and the payments that were made in April.
Why do we owe the railroad 30,000
That is,
on the locomotive?
yes, that's the lease on the locomotive. And that is offset every year by the amount we receive for the number of rail cars
Yes.
that come in. So that's rather a swap. We just received the money from the railroad. So as a matter of fact, one of the checks you have to sign is our check going back to the railroad. Any questions on the statement of financial position? We'll go to the budget to actual next, and we'll just look primarily at the year to date because the year has finished. Our total income was up. We were only down an average of 18%, and we had budgeted being down 20% from our base year. So we have collected some extra income that way. Our rental income for the bridge, which is this building, and the border station, the rents have increased, as you've seen Anthony bring them up, but we always have a percentage shortfall in case someone leaves. So that's why the additional income is not larger. We purposely keep it lower so that we're not caught short. Airport revenue, we've been lucky this year that we've had a little bit more. And this is your parking revenue, your vending machines, things like that. It's not the fuel or the AEAS. Fuel sales, we knew that the assumption for Jet A fuel was based on Contour's initial spending pattern, which didn't follow through, which is why our fuel sales are down so much. But that year-to-date actual is bang on to where we're assuming we will be for this coming year. So I think we'll be in better shape. The AEAS income, we had the total number of possible flights, and we had a percent reduction for canceled flights. However, there were more canceled flights than we anticipated, which has brought our income down there. And we know that the industrial park is fine, that the income calculation was incorrect. The tenants pay a portion of the utilities when they pay their base rent. However, the utility income was being included when it shouldn't be because it offsets the expense. We have corrected that for next year. Our marine terminal, we had one extra salt ship delivery, an unexpected transformer project, a small repair turbine project, and we also had the income from to offset the expense for the additional equipment rental. So that's showing up in our income side. We had to rent some equipment down at the port for the transformers. Transformers, correct?
Transformers, salt, just about every project we did do, we had to rent something.
The railroad has an increase this year, partly because of we had a few easement payments that come up every 5 years, so those are in there.
So as we move into next budget year, when we meet again, I'm assuming we'll have the audited figures.
We can have the audited figures, they took them away, I should have them within 2 weeks.
So for next month, and when we have that, if we could have the budgeted figures for this fiscal year we're in now to see, because I'm sure we've made changes in the airport revenue, fuel sales, and the AEAS. Did we make an adjustment to that in this budget? I can't remember. In this fiscal year?
Yes, we did, we had to make the adjustment, assuming that we were going back to EAS
EAS, yeah.
completely. So the AEA, the figure here for AEAS will be approximately 2.9 million anyway, because AEAS is going away in September.
Yes. If we could see that comparison.
Okay,
Just maybe there's something now that we're already into a new fiscal year we might want to look at. Based on where we ended up, audited figures for this past fiscal year. You know what I mean? I mean, I know it's early, but just to compare.
we can do that. Under our expenses, the employee benefits, our Neisler's invoice was over budgeted. So we had a little bit of a savings there. That Neisler's invoice came in at less than we thought it would. And the actual insurance, employee insurance increase was lower than budget. We had budgeted 10 or 11% and it came in at 9%. So there was a bit of savings from the budget there. Our bridge inspection under bridge maintenance was budgeted lower than the actual invoice. And the invoice was approved as more work was done during the inspection than we had anticipated. So that overage was acceptable to the executive director who approved the budget. Our utility expenses, our winter was not quite as harsh as last year, so we saved a little bit of money on our utilities. And the OBPA budgeted more of the commercial insurance to be borne by the bridge. But the calculations actually moved out more of the insurance into the different departments. What happens when we get the insurance bill for the year is it's whatever insurance we choose to finance. So whatever insurance policies are done and wrapped up by the time the finance agreement is made is what goes into the big insurance number. So any policies that might be late just go directly to the department. So there was just a little change in how the insurance went. The airport expenses, we had to raise, when we were recruiting the new airport manager, we had to raise the salary during the recruitment process. And we hired a part-time FBO employee to stop the FBO employees from working shifts along, which was a safety issue. The runway striping under maintenance expense was not budgeted, so that took up a good deal of that overage in maintenance expense, though we were lucky to have the PFC funds that was able to pay that bill. And the fuel sale expense, with less Jet A fuel sold, less was needed to be purchased. Utilities, again, winter wasn't quite as harsh. General expenses, the anticipated airport manager's recruitment should have been in the 22-23 fiscal year, but because Stephen Baldwin pushed it out into this fiscal year, we didn't get the bill for that. That's part of what the overage is there. And we were working on calculations for a couple of the general expense line items, more of the maintenance agreements and things like that. And it appears that when the budget went depressed, we didn't put those two line items back in. So that's why it appears that there's an overage when there really isn't. The interest expense line, we budgeted for interest expense for the line of credit for the revitalization project, but we haven't had to use the line of credit yet, so therefore there's a huge credit for us there. And the AEAS expense is the same as the income, with less flights coming in, less expense to pay. The utility expense in the industrial park, we always budget as though there were no tenants paying the utilities. And we have, of course, tenants paying the utilities, so this should always be a large credit balance for us. The salary expense for the marine terminal, the warehouse position, the warehouseman position has not yet been filled. And the longshoremen, we did not use them as much as we anticipated using, which is what gave us the salary expense credit. Again, on interest expense, we budgeted for a line of credit for the port expansion project, and we are not yet at that stage where we need the expense of the line of credit. Any questions on the budget to action?
Do you think that bottom line will be any different after it's audited?
Not much, no.
Not much.
There are no big, last year we had the movement of that harbor deepening money, we had to expense it,
Right.
which was an anomaly to last year, but there really aren't any anomalies to this year's audited financials.
Good.
And there's one piece of extremely good news. Under the Department of Transportation, aid to localities. We are pleased to announce that the OBPA received a line item award equal to its 2023-2024 budget shortfall,
And the amount of?
3.1. We're working right now with Department of Budget as to how to access it and what exactly it can be spent to fund. But it cannot be spent on projects, that I do know. And it is not going to open the floodgates for everybody to say, oh, well, I want. It's going to keep us until we can stabilize with possible new airline, possible more traffic on the road, that sort of thing. So we're grateful to New York State for including us in the budget line.
Yes.
Any other questions for Patty? Anything?
Just the accounts payable question, when I go back to the accounts payable,
Mhm.
looks like have we been reasonable in holding them in check?
Yes,
And we were a little worried about that. I think that's actually a good thing that we've been able to
we have
keep
going,
them within.
Within reason?
we're trying, and at this point, because we took an advance off our general line of credit, which we do owe back to Tompkins, we've only carried forward only. Steve always says that my impression of only has gotten bigger since I got here. We owe $415,000 that's last year's expenses, of which 330 of it belongs to 3 vendors.
Hmm.
So the general vendor situation is pretty healthy.
Good.
We're late 1 to 30 days and people are slapping us with finance charges, but you know, it's not a position where we can say, oh no, could you waive that?
Right.
We're late, we get it.
Right.
but we're keeping them, we're trying to keep everyone at a good position.
Okay,
Can't come to the table yet.
anything under other such matters, any other business for the finance committee? Okay. Then I would make a motion to, or take a motion to call the meeting adjourned at 4:50 PM.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Okay.